Hey, well, you've got your hands warmed up. Would you thank Pastor Jeremy for his message last Sunday? Good to see you this morning. No Daniel Bible study tonight. You're welcome to show up. We won't be here. That's what I was told. Next Sunday, we're going to be taking a special offering. We'll have the KFC buckets out. We're going to be taking a special offering for the Gundermans at our Wademan Nazarene Church, and just a good opportunity to dig down and let them know that they are loved and valued. They spent some time here in our church, and I'm pleased that they are the ones that we get to bless with a better Christmas this year. So that'll be next Sunday. Library is open. Needed to let you know that. It's open. So those of you who haven't been there for a while, you can get back to reading. Well, I get a moment of indulgence here this morning. This is three of the grandkids. On the right is Mackenzie. She's 5. You know, and I mean, it's fine. I get to do this. If you would like to speak, you can do what you want to. This is our grandkids. This is some of the grandkids. I make no apology. This summer, one of the unforgettable moments. Katie, Nani to them, spends her Fridays with the grandkids. And a few months ago, Mackenzie, there on the right, gave her heart to Jesus. And she knew what she was doing and still gives testimony that Jesus, His Spirit, is in her heart. I was having a conversation with her this summer, and I honestly do not remember what we were talking about. Katie says that it was Play-Doh. And she had built something or was making something, but as I was listening, I heard these words come out of her mouth. She said, "This is so satisfying." And I smiled to myself, and I told Katie later, and I wondered, does she really know what she's saying? Does she really know? And I thought about asking. I really did, but as I considered it, I thought, well, it really dawned on me, how qualified am I to ask her about being satisfied? I spent a lot of my life without being satisfied, without peace, without the joy that Carrie was singing about this morning. So I want to look in on 3 different conversations that Jesus had that I think have a significant implication for us on leading a life of joy and satisfaction. And these conversations revolve around our relationship with our stuff. The first conversation revolves around a family fight. And this is probably not the time to be elbowing the person sitting next to you and saying, oh, he's going to talk to us today. The second is about the thorny soil. And the third is an invitation. And I love that because over and over again, Jesus has a variety of conversations. He gives us insight. He tells us about himself. He tells us about eternity. He tells us what he's prepared for us. He tells us how to live godly, holy lives of peace. But over and over again, at some point, there is that invitation. He invites, and he invites again and again. And our third conversation is going to just look at his invitation. So Jesus is traveling. He did that a lot. A crowd of people have assembled there around him, and this guy in the crowd shouts out. I mean, you would almost think that he might have been a little self-conscious or embarrassed about this, but he shouts out, and he said, "Hey, teacher, would you tell my brother to give me my share of the inheritance?" I think there may have been a lot of silence going on about right then. I really don't think that it was culturally. I'm not sure that he had anything coming at this point in time. I don't know. But he was clearly preoccupied and caught up in the fact that fairness and justice had not been administered and that there was something that he should have received and he did not get it. And we read these words in Luke, the 12th chapter, that he cried out and said, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." So apparently a father has died, and here are two brothers who are dealing with an estate and who's supposed to get what. And this younger one doesn't think that it's been fair, and he tells Jesus, "You tell my brother. You tell my brother to give me what is mine." And because Jesus is a helpful and a loving person, we would read this response. Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you? Have you seen my business card? Am I a judge? Am I an attorney? What are you asking me about this for? Who made me your judge in this matter?" And then Jesus does something. He turns his attention away from the guy in the crowd who made the demand, and he addresses the rest of the people. A teachable moment. It's kind of like when your spouse says something to you and you turn your attention to the other people that are around and say something. "Did you hear what he said to me? Did you hear what she said to me?" No, it's not like that at all. There may be those moments, but Jesus turns to the people, he turns to the crowd, and he has a conversation about how you and I interact with our stuff. And he said to them, "Watch out. This isn't a reprimand. This is a warning." He said, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed." And then notice these words, "Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." He says, "Watch out. Be on your guard. Your life does not consist of the stuff that you own." Jesus looking at the crowd and he's saying to them, "You are not what you own. There's a difference between your worth and the pile of stuff that surrounds you. Life does not consist of the stuff that you possess. My clothes, they cover me. They do not define me. My car, it transports me. It does not define me. I'm not what I own. My house, it shelters me. It does not define me. My checkbook, my savings, they fund my life. They should not define me. Jesus is saying to the people, life does not consist of the abundance of possession. And he's just getting warmed up. And he takes off and he tells them the story of a farmer. And this farmer has had a really great year. He's had what in the farm business you call a bumper crop. And he's feeling good about this. I mean, he has got the storehouses full and he does not have room to put all of the grain that he has harvested. And you need to keep in mind that there are things that he did to create this harvest. And he tilled the soil and he planted the grain. And he probably done some weeding and things. There are other things that he had no control of. He didn't control whether it rained or not. And whether the sun was shining and how warm that it was. But here he is now thinking, what in the world am I going to do? And he decides, I'm going to tear down my barns and I'm going to be building greater, bigger barns. I'm going to take my foot off of the gas pedal and I'm going to take it easy. And I'm thinking, absolutely, that's the guy I want to be. But there are two things that we do not know about this guy. Number one is that subtly, quietly, he just ran out of time. His life is over. It's done. And Jesus says to him, you fool. You fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? He ran out of time. Do you know that that happens to people every day? I'm not saying that to be negative or to scare you or to say you better be careful, but I am saying we need to be aware. The clock is running. There is an end date. And can I tell you this morning, I don't want that to happen to you. I find myself more and more throughout the week seeing many of your faces, and in some cases, I don't even remember the names. But I don't want you to run out of time. I don't want you to run out of time without taking care of what matters most. The second thing that we don't know about this guy is what he has not been doing. This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. Jesus was expressing that this guy with the bumper crop was spiritually poverty-stricken. He was financially healthy, but God poor. This guy had full barns and an empty soul. You know anybody like that? Anybody that you've observed? More penetrating question. Does that describe you? Financially, we are okay, but emotionally, spiritually, relationally, we're bankrupt. Full barns, empty souls. I don't know what you experience when we read that story. I read that story and something wells up within me, and I'm thinking, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy with full barns and an empty soul. Follow me to a house. We pull in the driveway, and it is lined with beautiful ornamental grasses as we pull through the marble pillars on each side of the driveway. We can see through the open architecture before we've even went through the door. When we walk inside, there is marble and glass everywhere that we look. It almost causes you to catch your breath and wonder what is even holding the roof up, because there's few walls and few supports. In the kitchen, we see beautiful stainless steel commercial appliances, an indoor grill. This place is designed for entertainment. We walk through and see a balcony on one side, and as we walk out, we can see the backyard with a swimming pool and a guest house with some lights twinkling out there. And we think, what a beautiful place to entertain people. This is a beautiful home. No, it's not. It's a beautiful house. He comes home from work tired, exhausted. She comes home from work tired, exhausted. They move to their own separate area, watching their own TV sets in their room on different stories of the house. They haven't talked in a long, long time. They can't remember the last time that they had friends over. It's not a beautiful home, it's a beautiful house. Jesus says, be warned. He says, be on your guards with your relationship with stuff. And then we continue with a second story, a second conversation that Jesus would have. And I'm just going to call it the thorny story, the thorny soil. Remember when Jesus told about another farmer that was sowing his crops. And as he sowed the grain, you can't always determine where the grain is going to land. And it lands in different places, and there's different results. But we just want to look at one today, the soil, where it landed on the thorny soil. And Jesus is describing here why some people grow and some people don't. And he says the seed falling among the thorns refers to someone who hears the word. God gets their attention. They hear his words. But then the worries of this life. Anybody relate to that? But then the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke out the word, making it unfruitful. And this is the seed that begins to grow, and then it gets choked out by the competition. And can I remind you this morning, there is competition. There will always be competition, and the competition is not competing because Satan loves you or cares about you. But there's competition because he wants to destroy you and keep you from what God has planned for you. And notice the words. Notice the words, the deceitfulness of wealth. You know, it doesn't say wealth. It doesn't say because of the wickedness of wealth. We know that God often has blessed people who belong to Him and who serve Him. But He says, beware of the deceitfulness of wealth. Deceit speaks of a lie. In other words, it is a misrepresentation. It offers what it cannot give. And it's easy to get caught up in the desire for stuff and stuff that we see other people having. And don't think this morning that I'm preaching on stuff. That's not what Jesus was talking about. He said, be careful. Be careful that you don't get caught up in the deceitfulness of thinking, if I have that job, that car, that home, those clothes. It's a lie. And apparently it's our propensity to believe that something can do something for us that it cannot deliver. I can tell you I've spent hours of my life researching what is the best. I love the best. That's why I'm married to Katie. I didn't think of that in the first service. And she will tell you that sometimes it drives her nuts because I can't buy anything without researching what is the best. And I'm going to tell you what is really the most miserable of all is that you research and you buy what you think is the best and discover shortly thereafter that there was something better that you didn't know about. It's kind of like the lady who walks into her walk-in closet and speaks these words out loud, "Why do I love everything I buy and hate everything I own?" What if the empty space I'm trying to fill isn't my closet? What if I shop because I'm lonely, bored, and depressed? And it's as if Jesus is pleading with us, don't believe the deceptiveness of stuff. It makes a promise that it can't deliver. And if you find yourself in either of those conversations that Jesus is talking about, then I think the third conversation that we want to look at, it becomes even more important, the invitation. And this invitation is anchored in a place called Laodicea. On our maps, you can see it there above the north of the Mediterranean Sea, Jerusalem there in Israel. And here's just a few. Laodicea, 20 years ago approximately, it was just a mound of unexcavated dirt. It is one of the most active excavations in southern Turkey. And here's just what's emerged from that mound of dirt. Streets and columns and buildings. And here's a theater that some 2,000 years old. Looking here in this shot out over the Lycus River Valley. I've never been there. I have heard it said of those who have been there that upon visiting Laodicea, that it is one of those places that you leave and you really don't want to. That you leave feeling like, I want to stay. It is a place that was in the first century, it was a financial empire. It was home for great banking industry. They had a sheep with a sought-after black wool that was exquisite, and consequently, textile industry developed there. They had a medical university in Laodicea. And this is what Jesus would say about how, listen to me, about how the Jesus followers in Laodicea felt about themselves. And Jesus says, you say, I am rich, I have acquired wealth, and I don't need anything. I've got all I need. Jesus says, that's what you say about yourself. Do you want to know my assessment of you? Notice these words, you do not realize. Those are captivating words to me. You do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. This is church people. Church people with full barns and empty souls. And what will Jesus say to a church that's lost its way? Do you know what Jesus looks like? I mean, what image comes to your mind? For a lot of us in my generation, it may be that you think of a guy 6'3" with freshly shampooed hair, olive brown skin, Christ at the door. Warner Salmon gave us this painting, and it's impacted the world. I remember as a kid going to Lund Scenic Garden. Anybody in this service that remembers Lund Scenic Garden up at Maple City in a cedar swamp, life-size paintings of the life of Christ. And the great Lundo, a well-known magician, became a Christian and created Lund Scenic Garden. And as you walk through, he would narrate in a powerful voice that I will never forget. And there was special lighting and black light, and especially in that area was an amazing thing. But one of the pictures that I clearly remember as a little kid was a picture like this. And I remember him saying, will you notice that there's no knob on the outside of the door? The only way that the door gets open is if you open it. Do you know what verse in the Bible that picture illustrates? Do you know where it came from? Here I am. Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person, and they with me. You notice there's no conditions there. Not if this wasn't in your past, if you didn't have that sin, if you didn't have this, there's no conditions. I stand at the door of every heart, and I knock. If anyone hears and opens the door, I will come in. Do you know where that verse appears in your Bible? This is Jesus' invitation. It's his invitation to the church in Laodicea. It's just 3 verses after he says, you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. And 3 verses later, he says to them, here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in. Jesus says, I stand, I call, I knock. It is Jesus' invitation. It is Jesus' invitation to Christians who lost their way in a jungle of accumulated stuff, in anxiety and loneliness. And he says, I stand, I call, I knock. Oh, and by the way, If anyone opens the door, I will come in. Have you done that? Have you opened the door? He stands at the door and he knocks. Have you opened?